to our today's webinar titled, Are You Prepared for the Next Zero-Day Attack? I'm Smita More, Marketing Manager here at Accelerite and your host for today's webinar. Before we begin today's session, I had few housekeeping announcements to make. This webinar is approximately of 40 minutes. Please note that our session is being recorded and we'll make the link available with everyone after the session. We have kept everyone on mute to ensure that any background noise and conversations are kept private. To ask questions, please make use of the question box on your GoToWebinar window. Feel free to write your comments, questions, and anything that you want us to see in this question box. After the presentation, we'll try to attend all your questions. So this was all about the housekeeping. Let me introduce you all to our today's speakers. Today we have Shivesh Vishwanathan with us, who will be talking about how can we get prepared for the next zero-day attack. Shivesh heads the strategic product marketing team for the Endpoint business at Accelerite. And he is the subject matter expert in endpoint management and security technologies. Shivesh has about 19 years of experience in client-side technologies and mobility platforms. He has held multiple roles as software developer, product manager, and most recently as a product marketing head at Accelerite. He is a computer science graduate and holds an MBA from Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. We also have Manjunath Devigowda with us today. Manju, as he is popularly called as, comes with an industry experience of more than 17 years of product selling. He has been on the roles of pre-sales, senior enterprise architect for global systems integrator, and business development. Manju also has been working very closely with big 5 system integrators of India for sell through and internal opportunities. He has an experience of solution selling and joint solutions for enterprises, telco, healthcare, BFSI, and government business. He also specializes on various product tools and functional areas. Manju presently is heading pre-sales function for Asia Pacific and Japan region. I welcome both of our speakers today. And without any further delay, I'm handing over the session to Manjunath. Manjunath, over to you.
Thanks, Smita. Thanks for the introduction. So before we could start directly on the solution area that we are focused today, just wanted to step back a bit and kind of introduce to all of you who we are, and then take the next step towards the specific solution that we'll be talking today. So while I do so, I'll also kind of introduce you to the other portfolio of products very briefly, so that you can get back to us after the session. So the area that is of your interest and you see some potential where we can jointly go to market. So we are Accelerite. Accelerite is a business entity which is product only business entity from Persistent. So Persistent Systems is based out of Pune. It's been there in the industry for more than 25 years now. They pioneer in product engineering. They do product development for a few of the big companies to name like IBM, Microsoft, VMware, and they have been in this technology of engineering for almost 25 years, the day they started this venture. So now past 3 years back, the thought through was, why don't we have our own product portfolio just to focus on the product selling? So that's where a business unit called Accelerite was formed, which is an extension of Persistent, where we do only product selling. So we had certain products in our kit which we developed ourselves. And in this process of strengthening our product portfolio, we did a series of acquisitions. So in this process, one of the first acquisitions that we did 3 years back was Radia. Radia is a solution that we acquired from HP, and it's one of the biggest portfolio that we see as an endpoint management solution. So after our acquisitions from HP on the Radia side, the entire portfolio in terms of people, process, the QA, the engineering, and the support was completely acquired along with the product acquisition. There has been a lot of engineering and effort on Radia, which led to multiple modules and solutions under the umbrella of Radia. So we have today Radia Cloud, we have Sentient, which Shivesh will be talking about. The next solution that we acquired was cloud platform from Citrix. So this is a solution which helps you to orchestrate your virtual infrastructure and help you to build an infrastructure as a service offering for your private, public, and hybrid cloud. And it also has a CPBM component, especially for telco and MSPs who wants to monetize that in terms of billing and metering the consumption of the resources that have been offered as service. We have a solution very predominantly on the telco, which is our location product, location as a service, which is we have tied up with few of the big telcos in India. Almost the big five is with us on where we have signed the API expansion to that, where we consume those APIs to provide us to provide location as a service solution. And to extension to that is mobile workforce management, which helps you to track the engineers on field, where they are, how we want to allocate the jobs to them in terms of geofencing, geo-tracking, and then based on the skill set, allocate a job and make sure that you audit that whole process till the closure, right? The other solution, which is an extension that we bought after very recently, a year back, was Epona from Intel. So the solution is called Epona, which is an API monetization solution, which will use the telco infrastructure, the APIs that are available using this infrastructure, and expose these to monetize them. So this is one of the solutions which is very successful, which has a footprint of more than 35 telcos currently using this for their API monetization solution. And using this platform, our recent extension to this is IoT, which we call it as Concert IoT, which is an orchestration layer, which will help you to consume the data from your gateways and sensor, use that data, report that data, create those services, mash up, enhance those services, create these applications and APIs, and enable you for DaaS, that is data as a service, typically the use cases around IoT. So it almost covers the entire ecosystem of IoT in the orchestration layer. So being said so, these are one of few of the acquisitions that we did and swift acquisitions that we did, and a few of the big acquisitions that we did for past 3 years down the line. So if I look at the next slide now, which I can bring you some very nice story to tell. In terms of with the acquisitions what we did, we also had a huge customer base that we had to support. For example, today if I look back at Radia, we had around 2,000 plus customers worldwide. Citrix Cloud Platform today we have around 1,200 plus customers, right? Epona has few of the biggest telcos that we have with. So that's where we have customers across verticals with huge scale. Just to take an example of Radia itself, for an endpoint management solution, we have customer base right from managing up to 5 lakh endpoints. That's the scalability factor of that solution. So we have experience in across verticals. We have some big names to take across this product portfolio, and we have been investing on this to make sure that we meet these expectations and also adhere to the new cutting-edge technologies across these solutions so that we are there to address those new requirements. So we have offices in 6 locations, the Accelerite product portfolio business unit per se, and our head office is based out of Santa Clara. Now I will hand it over to Shivesh. He will walk you through specific to Sentient solution. That's the focus of the day. Shivesh, it's for you.
Thank you, Manjunath, and hello everyone. Thanks for the introduction to Accelerite, Manjunath. So my name is Shivesh Vishwanathan, and I'm part of the product group of Accelerite's Endpoint business. It's a pleasure to be here today. So, corporate IT teams manage many thousands of endpoint devices, and these devices include, PCs, laptops, ATMs, kiosks, point-of-sale devices, and many more as part of their endpoint management and operations. So over the next 20 to 25 minutes, I will be talking about what it takes to be prepared for threats and attacks that exploit zero-day vulnerabilities on corporate endpoints. I will show how IT teams today can use real-time queries on these endpoints to further develop their understanding of their endpoints, pinpoint vulnerabilities in them, critical configuration attributes in them, and so on. And the IT teams can really enhance their ability to diagnose issues and fix problems on endpoints in near real time with these capabilities that I'm going to showcase today. But before we get into the details of zero-day and what the vulnerabilities, how they can be tackled and all that, let's just take a quick look at what zero-day attacks are for those who might not be too familiar with that term. And let's also look at the nature and magnitude of the problem. So zero-day vulnerabilities are vulnerabilities in software that are unknown to the vendor and which hackers could potentially exploit. So here's a quick chart that I created which shows the chronology of events around zero-day vulnerability and attacks. The sequence of events here could vary a little bit, but this sequence is very illustrative of a potential zero-day attack window, right? So on the left, what you see is that a vulnerability gets introduced into a software, say with the release of a software version. But the important thing here is that no one really knows about it. Not the developers who coded the software, not the testers who tested it, or the customers who might have done their own basic testing before deploying it. So the vulnerability is there in the software. And it kind of escapes everybody's notice, and the vulnerability essentially is lying dormant for some amount of time until that someone discovers it, which is actually the second point, the second bullet, right? Now that person or group of people who unearth it could be a group of ethical hackers. It could be a customer who bumped into the problem while using the system, or it could be malicious hackers who are constantly looking out for opportunities to make money. Now, quite literally, this is the case. Actually, this is exactly the case of someone saying, I need this fixed yesterday. So that's exactly what is happening here, right? And hence the name is zero-day or day zero vulnerability. The hackers could exploit the vulnerability until a patch is deployed on target systems. And the vendor of the software has a very small window available to fix the problem and release a patch or a fix and so on, right? Because the vulnerability exists in the software. Once the vulnerability is identified and it comes to the vendor's knowledge, the vendor could proceed to fix it, and at some point the vulnerability gets released into the public domain, and after that a patch is deployed and the problem is eventually fixed. Now, depending on the sequence of these events, like I said, it could happen that no one comes to know or actually tries to exploit the vulnerability, and you are able to deploy the fix well in time. That is one scenario. The other extreme scenario is that you could realize that someone has already unearthed the vulnerability, long back and has been exploiting it for some time. So there are a couple of variations here, but somewhere in between, in between these two extremes, the attackers get a finite window of time when they could attack you. Now, once the vulnerability is known to you and to the public, what you have on your hands is essentially a race towards handling and mitigating the problem. At least mitigating it temporarily until the vendor comes out with a more permanent fix. And the malicious hacker could still be in the race to exploit the software at the same time. So that's one person. The hacker is trying to attack, to take advantage of this window of opportunity. Now the vendor, of course, is trying to get a fix as soon as possible, which involves testing the software, releasing a patch, all of that before it is too late. And you as a user or the third person would be trying to minimize the impact as much as possible, right? So it's essentially a race against time where each one is trying to reach a destination. Now, here's an interesting code. So this is the mitigation window that you have, right? Where you need to take some remedial actions, or temporary ones at least. I would like to paraphrase Watt Humphrey here. Watt Humphrey, for those of us who don't know, he was a key thinker of software process and engineering, and he was also a winner of National Medal of Technology given by the United States President. What he once famously said, he said it in the context of software process, but what he essentially said was that you have to first know where you are before you can get to any place else or any place that you want to go. So even if you have the most accurate map in your hand and you have been able to you have the best map, the most accurate one and everything, you have to first be able to spot yourself on the map before you can get directions to your destination, right? Translating that to our context here, as soon as you are made aware of a zero-day vulnerability in your system, the first order of business is for you to be able to adequately identify, pinpoint, isolate, find a workaround, and essentially temporarily try to fix the problem so it doesn't spread. That's the first order of business. And the point is that you cannot do that fast enough until you can quickly take stock of all your endpoints and retrieve all the data related to them. That is actually the equivalent of locating yourself on the map before starting to walk, right? And walk towards your destination. And here's an interesting data point also that I wanted to share. This is from HP Enterprise's cyber risk report. It called out the fact that attackers are increasingly attacking applications, and they've shifted focus away from servers and operating systems to operating systems and all to applications and endpoints. The reason is quite simple, really. There are hordes of applications that run on corporate endpoints today. There are laptops, and laptops actually comprise of over 60% computers out there today. The rest of the traditional PCs and all comprise only 40%. These are not those machines that are not portable, and this is only increasing in favor of laptops more and more. The 60% is only going to increase going forward. Now, what happens is that these laptops, because they are portable, they also work outside the corporate network a lot. They are out on public networks. They are in airports, coffee shops. They use hotspots which might not be very well secured, and so on. So that's what happens with the laptop. So they are out of your corporate network a lot, and they are more vulnerable and out of your control to that much more degree. So if you take a step back and look at how traditional endpoints have worked within enterprise, the PCs and laptops to a large extent have had a relatively safe existence, if you can say that, right? They work within the corporate physical boundaries, within network boundaries. They are usually secured and managed by actually a host of tools, right? There are so many tools. There are VPNs, firewalls, endpoint protection platforms, endpoint management solutions, DLP tools, antivirus, and so many more. Now, of course, that absolutely does need to continue the way it is. However, the problem is that these endpoints are now more vulnerable. They're more vulnerable with applications running on them, and corporate data stored on them. And like I said, they are operating from outside the corporate network. So that's what you see over there. That the endpoints are actually going out of your network. Now the diagram on the right illustrates that. But let's take a closer look at a blown up version of this diagram on the right. What is happening today is that endpoint devices are managed, just as simple IT assets with agents running on them that are pretty much capable only of receiving information. So agents typically receive directions from the server side, from the IT administrator. So they are managed in this one-way flow where they are at the receiving end of patches, updates, software updates, configurations, antivirus definitions, and so on. There is very little information actually that goes from these endpoints back into the IT administrator's desk. Now, by information, I don't mean information such as reports related to patch deployment and software updates, etc. Those are reports, and those are all post facto information, as I like to call them. They are what you get after you have taken some action on the endpoint. What I mean by information really here is what you need before you perform an action, and information that can actually help you make better decisions. Now, this might have been fine when endpoints were well secured within corporate boundaries with multiple tools looking after them. But this lack of information that comes before you take action is simply not enough today. What needs to happen is that endpoints need to become a part of the solution that manages and secures them. So we need to close the loop on this flow of information. treating endpoints themselves as a source of information actually can provide unprecedented amount of context on which IT can act. You can gather contextual information before you perform any action, or you can do it immediately after to verify the result. In both cases, you get most current information that you can continue using subsequently and consequently for the next actions that you perform. So let me take an example to make this a little more understandable, right? Let's say you actively manage 20, 25, 30,000 or so PCs in your enterprise. And you get a call from your vendor or someone else that there is a vulnerability in your software that the vendor has been informed about, right? Now it might be, that information might be public, might not be known to the public as yet, but you are basically advised to take a certain set of steps to protect your network and endpoints. It could be a workaround that you need to apply, it could be disabling or uninstalling the software temporarily, it could be changing a registry entry, could be just terminating the process. All of those temporary kind of actions, essentially something that requires you to take stock of the vulnerable endpoints at that particular point in time and take remedial action until a more permanent fix is available from the vendor in the form of a patch or a hot fix and so on. So to take this example, let's say the file or process that you're looking for is called SQL data collector.exe. That's just an example of an executable file, say the one that has a vulnerability, and you have to find all occurrences of a process by this name on each and every PC. Now what you would have to do is that you would have to comb through your entire network of endpoints to find this particular needle in the haystack. Now in this case it's one file, but it could be one process, it could be one piece of software, maybe version of software, maybe antivirus definition, existence of antivirus, any of those things that could actually potentially cause a huge embarrassment and financial impact for your company, right? Now currently it might take your team days or weeks of manual effort to gather all the information from all the corporate PCs and laptops. You need to bring all of them together in one place in order to plan the next course of action, which would be to remediate them or to apply some kind of a temporary or permanent fix, etc. The process would involve multiple tools, maybe some remoting software that might be needed to check in on PCs, some manual checks distributed across locations, and mostly many person hours of meticulous work is what it would take today, right? So that is usually the harder part of the entire process than even deploying a fix, which can actually, interestingly be done in a few minutes in most cases, right? So finding a problem is often turns out to be the harder part of fixing the whole problem as a whole. So I will use Sentient, Accelerite endpoint detection, response, and diagnostic solution for this illustration today, and for querying endpoints in real time for information on this file called SQL data collector.exe that we just saw. Now, on the screen here, you see a simple search bar in which you can type in a query that requires looks a lot like a natural language query. So let's see the information. So you get some assistance in the on your search. You can search for a process, a file by its name, maybe even a registry entry, existence of antivirus agent. So there are multiple options available. There are multiple types of queries that you can run. So this makes up the first key aspect of a solution that gets this information for you from endpoints in real time, is the ease with which you can query it. Okay, so now that we have typed this query, let me run it and see the results as they start coming in, right? So as you can see on the bottom left, the results have started coming in. So there's 18,000, 36,000 in 6 seconds. The results are coming in now. All these results are coming in real time at such a huge scale. There are 90,000. These are actually PCs, or the enterprise PCs that are being scanned. So on the top right, you see the visualization of results. There are multiple graphs. In this case, it's all because we are searching for an exe file. It's only the Windows machines that are relevant. On the bottom, on the top left, you see that there is big data processing involved, which is very interesting. Now all these endpoints are returning data at a very high velocity and in huge numbers. Now the processing includes slicing and dicing of the information to create results that are easy to understand. So here you see that the data has actually come back and has been categorized into 4 different categories, right? So 4 different panels that you see. The categories are device type. You can see the results by device type, by operating system type, by the operating system version, and by subnet. And this adds up to the total number of devices that have been scanned on the bottom left that you can see, over 110,000 devices, and which happened in about 20 seconds. So blink and you will miss it. So that's essentially all the data that has come in, and we can see some high-level graphs here. But let's move on, and so let's see what you can do further, right? Once you have the results, I can actually drill down to see the detailed information of endpoints. There you go. Now here you see the same graph again, but you also see a list of PCs that have come back with that particular information, saying that I have this file stildatacollector.exe running on my machine. So you can look at specific endpoints, specific PCs on this, and on the remediate button that you see over there, you can click that to remediate this particular problem. Right now, in this case, this was the process that we're looking for. So the remediate action was actually simply to kill the process, to terminate the process. So that's what we are checking here. So remediate operation will terminate. Are you make sure you want to proceed? So that's remediation. Of course, the remediation action will vary from query to query. For example, if it is a patch that you're looking for, and if it is not present, you can deploy the patch. If it is a file that you're looking for, you can delete the file, or if it is not there, you can upload the file. So there are multiple different remediations available on this, and this remediate button is also a window to ways in which you can remediate using other tools and all as well. So now let's summarize what we just saw. Sentient provides this kind of EDR capabilities. So the 6 capabilities that we saw. The first one is the querying is simple and specific. That is also very powerful. Think of it like a Google for your enterprise, where you get all your queries answered. Now, in addition to canned queries, one of the canned queries that we saw, Sentient also supports addition of custom scripts for querying and for remediation, so which enables IT to explore endpoints further. So, something that we might not have thought of as a vendor, you can script for it and run that script on endpoints to get additional data points from the endpoint. The results that come in are displayed very graphically, as you saw. Now, query results typically come in very large numbers. Now, even if just the query is just asking for a single data point, you're actually executing that query over tens of thousands of endpoints, which are potentially running across multiple locations and geographies. So all that is actually a big data and a high velocity data problem. Now, the high velocity data coming from endpoints at such a large scale is gathered and processed in real time as well, right? Once you have analyzed and evaluated the information, it is simple to identify specific endpoints and get additional information on them. So the list of endpoints that we saw, you can actually drill it down to that level, get all the details of those endpoints, which subnet it belongs in, what is the operating system, what is the version, and all of that. So you get all of that information. And finally, with all this information in hand, you are able to go forward and remediate the endpoint. Now contrast this to an earlier world where you did not really have a very good insight into the endpoint, and you would still go ahead and perform an action, whereas this is giving you a lot of information before you perform the action. And like I said, the remediation also can be as a custom script instead of one of the canned remediation options. Now the endpoint characteristics itself that Sentient can retrieve include some of these items, right? So you can retrieve information with respect to admin rights, hard disk information, patch information, antivirus, disk encryption, DLP file, CPU. There's a lot of such information that you can get from the endpoint. All of it in real time. Cannot emphasize that enough. So all of that comes in at real time, so that you can look at all this information, get a really nice perspective on what you need to do, and then take an action. Now the characteristics that we saw in the tag cloud there, so they are broadly classified into 5 these 5 different categories. So there's files and processes is one category, settings and configuration, software, devices, and user characteristics such as authentication, number of logins, login failures, and all of that, access rights, and so on. Now on the right, what you see here is how all these characteristics that come into Sentient can be utilized in different IT sub-functions, right? So you see on the right, you have audit and compliance, you have incident response, information protection, and so on. So these are the different areas, IT operations areas and IT security areas where information like this can be extremely valuable. Now, it is worth pointing out here that it is not that Sentient will replace any of these tools. Sentient rather acts as a catalyst that enhances these IT operations. And it acts as a gateway security solution as well that provides additional context for IT teams and managers to act on. So for example, like we saw in the demo, your security and vulnerability management can be made more robust and reliable, right? Your audit and compliance process can actually be speeded up tremendously using Sentient because you get all the real-time information, the latest information. And there are such, many such multiple sub-functions, functions of IT that can benefit from Sentient. Now, from our experience, the impact of this catalyst behavior is tremendous. I've spoken to IT leaders in multiple companies, and they have tried it and firsthand, and what they say is that they felt like they were essentially flying blind earlier in the absence of Sentient. Right? Now their work is much more well informed. They know exactly when they're supposed to act, what impact their actions will have on their environment, on their endpoint environment, their network environment, and so on. So all of that is available to them. So I wanted to conclude this presentation with one last data point. This is the statistics of the scope of zero-day vulnerabilities in 2016. Right? You can see that vendors with widely used software are especially the soft targets. Right? So vendors like Adobe, Microsoft, and so on. And these are pretty much software which are used world over by excuse me, each and every company, right? So now for example, talking about Microsoft software, Microsoft delivers its updates and patches on one Tuesday of every month, and the attackers hit Microsoft software right after the company delivers its patches on Tuesday. So zero-day vulnerabilities are essentially, they're eventually fixed by vendors, but they do open up a window of opportunity for attackers to attack software, right? And especially popular software like Microsoft and Adobe software and all are especially vulnerable to zero-day attacks. Having the ability to quickly pinpoint, and locate the affected endpoints and to be able to quickly act on them will be a crucial tool in your hands to manage these vulnerabilities. So essentially the key takeaway here is that don't let these attacks blindside you. The solution lies within your endpoint, and that's the key insight here, and you should be able to utilize that fact. Today the endpoints are part of the problem. What you need to do is make these endpoints part of the solution, and a tool like Sentient can help you do that. So with that, I would like to hand it back to Smita, and Manjunath and I would be glad to answer any questions at this time. Smita?
Yes, Shivesh, thank you so much. This definitely was a very insightful session, and the data that you shared, I'm sure it definitely was useful to all our audience. Friends, with this, we'll open the session for the questions and answers. I can see quite a good number of questions that are coming in. Till the time we get more questions, here's an interesting announcement we have. We are offering 30 days free trial of our product Sentient to first 20 requests. Send in your requests to us at sales@accelerite.com. So only first 20 requests will get this 30 days free trial of Sentient. So here are a few questions that I can find out on the chat box that has come out. First is, does Sentient support access control for administrators?
Yeah, so actually that's a great question. So Sentient controls, Sentient provides role-based access control for administrators. So administrators can have a small hierarchy that they can set up. They can create custom roles and different levels, and we absolutely understand that a lot of these remediation activities and even querying activities need to be controlled within the IT department as well. So only certain people are capable of running remediation. This is especially important when we have spoken to customers that they look for especially with the ability to run custom scripts and all that. They definitely do not want it to be running to be run by just about everybody. So Sentient comes with a role-based access control, and you can create these users and roles with different kind of abilities and capabilities. So yes, Sentient comes with that.
Sure. Here's another question. Are the queries encrypted before they are sent on the wire, and does that introduce any additional lag?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everything inside Sentient, we take security very seriously. The queries, all the queries that go on the wire, to the streaming servers and beyond, all to the endpoints and all of that, they are all encrypted, and they also use secure channels for communication. So all of this is, all of that is built into the product, and yeah, so the short answer is that all the queries are encrypted and all the responses are encrypted, so that no one can peek in and get information out.
Okay. Can Sentient reach machines that are outside the corporate network, and what about offline machines?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So Sentient right now provides access to machines that are there on the corporate network, and in our roadmap, it's easy for us to reach out to machines outside of corporate network as well. So talking a little bit about the architecture, Sentient is based on it's an agent-based architecture. So all the PCs, all the endpoints are actually running agent. So it's fairly fairly easy for these endpoints to be reached. The agents can reach back to the servers. The servers can reach out to the agents, and all of that. So yeah, so Sentient will support machines even outside of the corporate network very soon. And with respect to the offline machines, so the Sentient has other capabilities, like you can send a query, you can have a sticky query kind of a thing. We call it long-lived queries. So you can have the query running for sort of virtually running for 3 days or so, or how many ever days, and machines that are offline that might come online will run the query at that point of time. So all of that is queued, and all of that. So Sentient supports all these kind of infrastructure. We obviously want to maximize the number of endpoints that Sentient can reach and how fast the responses can come in. And even if the endpoints are offline, whenever they come online, they should be able to send back the information.
Sure, thanks. We have room for another 2-3 questions. We'll just quickly take them. The next question is, which operating system platforms does this tool run on?
So, yeah, there are two parts to this question, I think. So I'll cover both. The operating systems on the endpoint side, we support Windows and Linux. So we have agents that are written for Windows and for Linux. So that's kind of the universe of endpoints that are supported on the client side, on the devices side. And on the server side, Sentient right now, basically Sentient is set up on and deployed on Linux servers. So that's the supported platforms on the server side.
Okay. Is this an on-prem solution or a cloud-based solution?
So Sentient, today, so basically Sentient, the way it is used and the purpose for which it is, generally will be used is for, a lot of security use cases and so on. So there's a lot of security information from endpoints that need to be gathered. So the short answer is that Sentient today is available as an on-prem solution. We are working on a cloud solution as well. But one of the things to keep in mind is that when you use Sentient in the cloud and your endpoint is within the corporate network, then the Sentient servers will need to sort of go through the firewall and into the endpoints and into the PCs, kind of coming the other way around from outside to inside. So that's a bit of a caveat. So today we have on-prem solution because most of our customers are comfortable with on-prem solution. They have all the setup and all of that. The cloud solution is coming. It's just easy to trial and use this, the product in that sense, and using a cloud setup as well. So if it is needed, it can be set up on the cloud as well, with the caveat that there might be certain changes in the infrastructure that might be needed.
Sure, I'm sure that many of us will be excited to see the cloud-based version soon. We just have one last question that we can take. There are lots of other questions that have come in, but friends, will take them offline because we will be running short of time. So Shivesh, here's the last question for today's session. What is the scalability that this solution supports in terms of number of PCs?
So the number of PCs. So what we have tested with is over 100,000 endpoints, over 100,000 PCs in a corporate network. So I mean, anything up to that is something well tested. But the way the architecture is of Sentient is, it's a hierarchical architecture where you have a couple of layers that you can add, and the scalability is that can actually go much more than that. I mean, there's no reason why it would be limited by by the number of endpoints, really speaking. But what we have tested it on is that it works comfortably and pretty fast at over 100,000 endpoints kind of a scale. And actually, going back to the earlier question, one of the things that also is worth mentioning is that all the communication is encrypted, and it's all through secure channels and all of that. And even on this scale, we have done security. We have done testing around performance and responsiveness, and throughput and all of that. All of those are relevant parameters for a solution like this. And so we have tested all this on over 100,000 endpoints. So what you saw was 110,000 endpoints. So that's the kind of numbers that we're talking about. And so in terms of scalability, in terms of performance, even with the security features all built in, which is built in from day one, the performance hit is also not there. So all of that is well tested out.
So just to add on to that, if you look at the components that we are used for the infrastructure build for Sentient, some of these are very leading edge. Just to name of those, Apache Cassandra is the open source distributed database management, which is very successful in there. Apache Kafka is our messaging system that we use, which takes care of whole load of messaging with an amazing throughput quality. Spark is the fast engine that we use for large data processing. So these are the fundamental blocks which enable the platform to be quick, agile, and also take huge amount of data in transit. So that's where the scalability is not a factor to consider at all, where we have tested for lakh plus, but it can definitely scale horizontally or even vertically to meet a kind of a good requirement.
Thanks, Manjunath, for adding to this. I wanted to keep this as the last question, but there's another very interesting question that has come in. So is Sentient a replacement for antivirus software?
So yeah, so absolutely not. I mean, so one of the points that I made during the webinar was, I mean, a lot of the tools that are there, think of them as your general security and operations tools that are absolutely needed for you to do your day-to-day operations and all that. So antivirus software will and should keep running on endpoints and on PCs. Sentient will actually help you get a lot more out of your existing solution. So if you have antivirus, it can help you look at some of the other parameters, some of the complementary things on the complementary data points on the endpoints that you can check and correlate them with endpoint with your antivirus data. You can check the definitions of the antivirus, whether it's updated and all of that. So I mean, Sentient doesn't replace any of these tools, like I said, DLP tools or antivirus tools or firewall. So all these tools will continue. Sentient just acts as think of it as an out-of-loop query that you can run at any point of time and get instantaneously, get results, and then take actions on your normal tools just the way they are with a lot more information that you have in hand.
So thanks, Shivesh. Friends, I think that should be the last question that I am taking for this today's session. We've got many questions that we'll answer offline. If you have any further questions, feel free to write to us at sales@accelerite.com. And before I end this session again, a quick reminder that only first 20 requests will receive 30 days free trial of our product Sentient. So please go ahead and drop an email to us at the mentioned email address. So with this, I'm ending our session today. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Manju and Shivesh, thanks a lot for presenting this session today. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.